Hi, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Morning Joe with Christina and Brooke. Today, we're coming to you with a topic on your brain. Why do learning styles matter? And why does the way you think matter? Joe, correct me on that second part.
Why does
Yeah.
You, Joe.
Joe, go.
Always start off with I'll set the bar low.
No.
Like I always do. No, I'm just kidding. It matters, right? Like it matters. And again, it goes back to what we always talk about. The better we're able to understand how we think, what our tendencies are, the more that we're able to kind of figure out whether those tendencies work in what we're trying to accomplish or not. So if we know that we're somebody, and by the way, Christina and I have laughed about this in a lot of different contexts where we've talked about the type of students that we were during different times in our lives, where Christina is like, I feel like her academic experience is the one that any parent would like cash in on right now. Like I'll make a car payment for the next 20 years for my daughter to have the academic experience that Christina had, right? Like just super go-getter, super motivated, great grades. And for a large chunk of time, I could not have cared any less, right? But the idea that finding yourself at a place of knowing how you learn best matters so much because it allows you to set things up for you to be successful. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like whether it's through a study session, whether you're preparing, my goodness, like my wife has been taking these tests for this career transition she's going into, whether it's a promotion that you're trying to get and figuring out what you need to know, what you need to learn and how to improve, knowing how you process information best changes everything. It changes the dynamic of how you can go about doing that.
Yeah. I think even as adults, we're learning so much about ourselves. Even if it's not our learning styles like visual, auditory, kinesthetic, tactile, but there's so many things that we're learning, strengths, goals, values. And for teaching or communicating to someone, whether it be a student or an adult, you said that Christina was that like ideal student, right? But like when we were going to school, the majority of what was being taught to us was lectures, right? So if you're an auditory learner, then that might have worked for you, especially if you were interested in the topic. But for someone who might be better in a hands-on type of environment, kinesthetic, tactile, or even visual, that might have not worked for you, even if you were motivated for the topic, because now it takes you extra time to go and relearn the information. So it's interesting how, like, where you took that, Joe, because I mean, I know that when I was in school, I wanted to do well, but there were only certain classes that I did do well in. And those were the classes that were like science, hands-on, really, problem solving, constructive thinking, math, where I could just, manipulate things. But English and social studies, no way. Memorization.
Yeah.
No, go for it, Christina.
So interesting that you say that, because I did well in the school setting and in education in general, because I loved it. Like I just loved everything about school. But interestingly, I'm a kinesthetic learner. Like I have to do it. So I've noticed, for example, when I train people, they're like, Christina, how do you do this? It is really hard for me to tell them. I'm like, hold on a minute. I need to do it. And then I can tell you, or let me show you. Isn't that interesting?
Mm.
Yeah, like highly visual and highly hands-on. Like I need to like feel it, touch it. You have to do it. Yeah, like I can't tell you. Like, Christina, what do you want this to look like? I don't know. We just need to do it. I don't know what I want it to look like until sometimes it's done, and it's done when it's done. You just keep working on it until you're pleased with it.
So what was your system then for learning if information was spoken to you?
I always took notes. Like I had to like process, visualize, write it down. Like math was my strength. And I think it was because it was, you had to do it.
I'm also wondering if you have a higher processing speed than most.
I do.
Is
My processing speed is fast.
Yeah, because someone who is an auditory, me too. Me too. Before I found out I had ADHD a year ago, my mom told me that when I was in elementary school, I had a processing disorder. I was like, oh, okay. Which then turned into ADHD. But yeah, for you, Christina, who you're not an auditory learner and you can translate it into visual, working memory, kinesthetic, tactile, it's, it's because your processing speed is so fast.
Yeah, that definitely helps. And also like the motivation is there. Like I want to do well.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it if I'm not going to do it well.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does that mean for the learners or people that we know and understand and love, and they don't have that fast processing speed? And, like, how do you communicate? How do they learn information?
Repetition. And like you said, like match it to their learning style. So how do you best process? Let's use that modality with repetition until it
Exactly.
automatically for you.
Yeah. And, sorry, Joe, I know you're like dying to say something. It's funny because, we're educators, but we're also, we work with adults. We are adults. We are in relationships. We have to communicate. So our significant others and our friends and our family, they all learn differently too. So the more you know about them, the better you can communicate with them. Right. And the less frustrated you get with them. Like, I know that if I'm going to tell something to, and I'm not going to mention it because they probably listen to this, they're going to be like, wait, what did you say? And it's going to frustrate the heck out of me. So instead I'll text it to them and then I'll explain it afterwards.
Smart.
Yeah.
It's a great strategy.
And what you were just talking about there is where my mind started getting caught up in this loop of like how many different ways this can apply to different parts of our lives, depending on who it is that's listening and where they are in life and what they're trying to accomplish, right? Like a minute ago, I was thinking about how even though most of us might have tendencies or might have our brain wired in a way that makes a certain type of learning easier or more natural, chances are that all of us kind of benefit from a lot of different ways of learning, a lot of different ways of engaging and interacting with content.
Good point.
But the other side of that also is like, depending on the situation, that just because we might only learn or might feel comfortable engaging with content in one way, we might not be in a situation where we can just be okay with that and rely on that and have to be okay with wanting to learn different ways of learning. So I'm thinking of somebody who is like, somebody who really loves, we'd call it a kinesthetic learner, I guess is maybe the older phrasing for it, but somebody who likes moving around, somebody who has to engage with it, and tell that person that they need to like make it through a traditional 4-year college setting. Yes, they might have a professor or two, or they might find some cool way of adapting it on their own, but they also need to, going back to Christina, the word that Christina used as like the defining characteristic for her in my brain of who she is, there also has to be like a level of motivation of like, this might not be natural. This might not be the easier way, but I need to figure this out. I need to get better at being able to sit in a classroom with somebody who's just going to talk at me.
Yeah.
Whether it's one person or whether there's 100 of us, somebody who's just going to talk for an hour, and I still need to walk away getting something from it. Like, I still got to get my piece.
And you
train online learning.
Right. Those learners need strategies, especially in today's world. And that translates into adulthood too. I know my days that I am not as productive are when I look at my calendar and I'm like, booked back to back, like nothing in between. Like my staff laughs at me because they're like, oh, she's doing her walk. I have to get up and embed movement within my day, or I am not fresh for that next meeting. Like if this one runs over into the next one, it takes me like 10 minutes to get my head right in that next minute. Like I'm just not there. I haven't recouped from what just happened from the previous one. Like I need those movement breaks throughout the day.
Yeah. And it's funny, like I know this is for me, like veering off to another topic, but like I've been attending this ADHD conference all weekend and started yesterday. It's not all weekend. And it talks about productivity, and like being productive isn't just doing a million things, right? It's having that space and self-care and regulation and resilience. So if you just bounce from meeting to meeting, how are you being productive?
Yeah.
You're actually like ending up with probably a very big to-do list at the end of things that you're taking away.
Yeah.
And your brain is probably fried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Joe is smiling. There's something happening in there, but he won't tell us. Watch.
Of course, I always do. I always do. What are you guys talking about? No, I'm just connecting the dots of the conversation that we're having. And like for me, in some ways, you just described the situation that I often find myself in, because the way that I process information, you were talking earlier about, oh, I bet you Christina's processing speed is like a little bit faster. I walked around life thinking that like my processing speed was kind of average. Like that's just like a normal person walking around life, until I met Christina. I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm like way deficient in here. Like my level of process, like my processing speed is crazy slow. Being able to engage with Christina and see how quickly her brain works. You just described, Brooke, kind of in my ideal workspace, what that looks like. It involves a lot of thinking and not just action from one step to the other.
Oh,
And
I
it's
want
not-
the action.
And it's not that, wait, what was that?
I want the action.
Right. And I think, and Christina and I, we've had these conversations where we can both see the pros and cons, like the necessity of being able to sit through back-to-back meetings. Because sometimes that's your day. Sometimes that's your week. And you can't just say, oh, well, forget it, I'm just going to have a bad week. No, you need to endure. You got to get your stuff done. So there's a benefit to that. But there's also the easy con that we can see of like, if that's all it ever is, and there are never breaks, and there's never time to walk around, and there's never time to gather your thoughts, it's unproductive. And even though we would both kind of want it to be more in one direction than the other, I think it just still goes back to the idea of needing to understand, what do I need to do to be able to be successful in the environment that I'm in, whether it's as a student, whether it's as an employee. You mentioned the one as a spouse or as a family member, how you communicate with people based on how, and we've talked about communication before, based on their learning styles, which is linked to communication and how their brain processes things. So that's it. That's why I was smiling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically the purpose and the reasoning behind knowing your learning style so that you can evolve and be productive and happy and fulfilled and adjusted. And that's a part of that, is knowing those things about you and how you interact with the world around you.
Yeah. It also helps you feel more confident too, when you know yourself, because you can speak the language. So it's not you feeling like you don't fit into the world. It's the world's not fitting into your style. So you need to self-express and be able to say, hey, this is the way I learn. Wait a second, let me write this down. Or, okay, let me see it. Or let me touch it, and then things become, you get that rhythm a little bit more, and, you just connect with things and you process things, and yeah.
Yeah. All of that.
All of that good stuff.
Yeah. Period.
Yeah.
All of that. What she said.
All of that. But there's so many different tests out there, and I'm like so into all of those things, like Fluid Scared, the executive function questionnaire, learning style questionnaire, the predictive index, this and that.
Yeah.
And it's just so, I could go into analysis paralysis on those things. But, they're meaningful.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's fascinating too, just to disaggregate and look at the correlations. I'm with you, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. Josie, yeah, me too.
No, yeah, we diverge here. I'm in like a middle ground with those things where I'm like, there's a benefit. Like with most things, there's a benefit to it, and there's real good applications. But then there's also like those crazy people that go really overboard with it, and it becomes like their thing, and it's like everything is defined by their thing. And that's okay. That's okay. It's just not me. I'll swim in the ocean. You guys let me know when you're done. I'll make sandwiches.
You're more than just a test score, Joe.
I don't know. I think I get way too mental taking those exams, where I'm like, So should I put what I think would be consistent with what I am, or should I just put what if that me putting what I just feel right now isn't consistent with what it would have been on a different day, and if I had breakfast, or maybe I wasn't happy this morning, or I didn't have that many hours, and I'm like on question number 2, right?
Yeah. And
So
I'm like 55. I'm like, I'm done.
Correct.
Over.
Right, you're like already analyzing the results, and I'm still like, but wait, I know what
Yeah.
type. If I answer this question in this way, I know what type it's going to filter me into. Is that me? Is it not me? But it's kind of me. But I kind of all of these. And then
You're so introspective.
And
I think I just
Here, Joe, here's a test. It means nothing. Go.
yeah, that's it, Brooke. I think that's it. I'm gonna try that.
You're not the one answering it. It's an outer body experience. Go.
So, but like, am I on Mars in an out-of-body experience, or am I here on Earth? Am I like in water or on a landform? I need to know, Brooke.
it's one of the many things that I love about our dynamic is that is my brain almost all the time, not all the time, but near all the time. In the midst of like these crashing waves of organization and task initiation that you guys are constantly lapping on the shore, I'm like, yeah, is that a dinghy out there? What is that out there? I don't know. I'm gonna go investigate.
You are a hands-on learner. I feel it. I don't know. I feel
Going
it.
back to the test, like, yes, I could sit there. I could sit through a lecture and just take it and take notes and be fine. Of course, I like hands-on thing. Like, yeah, I think I can adapt. I'm pretty adaptable, I think, to different situations, I think.
Yeah.
I think
Cool.
so.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are awesome. That was fun.
Yeah.
See you next Sunday.